What do you believe right now that's making you feel this way? And when you analyse it, you realise how irrational you can be at times.
Every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
It's not sales per se, but the outcome of it is because people get to know you, they get to see you.
But, you know, what's the culture like at the business? What do we stand for, the values?
I've got to tick that box on my personal development programme I don't really want to be here.
Scaling up a business isn't easy. If it were, we wouldn't have less than 4% of businesses scaling beyond 10 employees or around £1 million turnover level, and less than 1% beyond 50 employees. But the contribution that we make as owner-managers to our economies is immense and should never be underestimated. Yet it can be a tough gig for all of us at times, and only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And through ScaleUp Radio, we aim to help make things a little easier. We interview guests who have been where you are now and may have faced some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked for them, as well as what didn't. And we've also combined many of the lessons from these interviews and also through working with hundreds of owner managers over the last 10 years or so into a practical scale-up handbook that we've called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System, or ESUS. And it's for owner managers like you and me as we navigate our own scale-up journey. And you can order a copy through your favourite online book retailer or by going to all the W's, esusgroup.co.uk, www.esusgroup.co.uk. Another great guest on ScaleUp Radio. This time I spoke with Jenna Wilson, who is the founder of Little Dreams Consulting, and they help young families, so they help the parents with young children to really get sleep under control and really get their life back in some respects. I mean, you'll listen to how profound some of the changes are that they can make to people's lives. And I think probably all of us as entrepreneurs are familiar with what happens when we don't get enough sleep every now and then. And maybe some of us have had young children as well that haven't slept very well. So we can well understand the kind of benefits that Jenna and her team bring. But lots of things we cover. Jenna was a solicitor beforehand, and then started up this business when she was pregnant with her third child. So lots of really good stuff. And we also talk about franchising because Jenna's moved into franchising her business. So we uncover a lot of lessons around the thinking around why you might want to franchise, some of the things you need to think about. But it's not all about franchising and some of the other aspects you can imagine within sleep. You need to build up that credibility, just like we do with any other business. You know, how do we establish our credibility with what we do? So Jenna talks about how they went about that, how they also build the culture up, make sure that culture is maintained. And as they franchise the business, they get more people involved. How do they make sure that they keep that culture where they would like it to be? So really great interview. Really encourage you to listen carefully to everything that Jenna's got to say. Welcome to another episode of ScaleUp Radio. I'm here with Jenna Wilson, who is the founder of Little Dreams Consulting. So Jenna, welcome to ScaleUp Radio.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. I'm really looking forward to finding out more about your business. So Little Dreams Consulting, tell us what that's all about.
So we are baby and child sleep consultants. We basically help babies and their parents, by a happy coincidence, get more sleep. I set up Little Dreams after I'd had my middle child. I was a solicitor for 12 years, representing children in care proceedings, and had my middle son, and then realised that I didn't love it anymore. What was I going to do with my life? Because this is all I'd ever wanted to do. Since I was a child, I wanted to be a solicitor. And very long story short, went to see a careers advisor. We talked about things that were important to me. And then I kept seeing an advert on Facebook for the training that I eventually did. Oh. I just kept seeing it and kept seeing it. And it kind of seemed to tick all the boxes that I'd been talking through with this careers consultant. And so I mentioned it to my husband one evening and said, what do you think about this? And he's like, oh, it's your perfect job. You have to apply for the training. And then here we are.
Great. And that was training around sleep for children, presumably, and improving sleep in families. Is that what the training was?
So basically what we do is that we we do seminars as well, but we work one-on-one with families. Basically what happens is that they have a free phone conversation with us to check that we're the right fit. And then if we decide that we are the right fit for them, we then work with them one-on-one. They fill out a questionnaire in relation to their little one, send that back to us, and then we prepare a sleep plan that's just based upon their little one and support them through emails and phone calls and sleep log analysis as we're working together.
Great. So sleep log analysis and everything. So this is electronic, or are they hand recording? How does that work?
Back historically, so before my colleague Faye came on board, I'm a paper and pen girl. I was a solicitor. That's how I like a paper and pen. Faye dragged me kicking and screaming pretty much into the 21st century, maybe the 20th, and it's now electronic. It's on Google Sheets, so it's not terribly exciting, but it automatically updates to hours. So what it means is that if families have questions about something time critical, like a nap, should I put my little one down for another nap or bring bedtime forward, we can see what's happened that day and advise them based upon their little one's sleep rather than on, a generic 5-month-old or a generic 6-year-old or that sort of thing.
Okay, and how does the business side of it work? How does do they pay you for the particular service, project, time? How does that all work?
Yeah, so we have different packages. We have 3 different packages depending on the age of the children. We have got an antenatal package for parents who are pregnant. That doesn't involve the support because obviously, a newborn's a very different type of baby to other babies. Then we have children in a cot and children in a bed, and so they just pay for the package. Children in a cot, generally 2 weeks. Children in a bed, generally 3 weeks. But if we get to the end of the 2 weeks and I don't know, the baby's been poorly or had a tooth come through, or we're doing a nap transition, something like that, we'll carry on working with them until we reach their goals.
Okay, so it's a relatively short-term engagement from that aspect. Do you do anything longer term?
We don't need to. We do have kind of follow-up support if they need it. If their little one is going to transition a nap and they just want us to kind of talk them through it or that sort of thing. But really, generally by the time we finish with them, within that 2 or 3 weeks, could be a little bit longer. But the reason that their packages are that long is that because we've reached their goals by then.
Great.
Which is really lovely.
I can tell you absolutely love what you're doing. What is it that you love about it so much?
The sleep side of things, I just love the impact that we have on people's lives. We have so many testimonials that people have said, you literally changed our lives. We've had mummies mostly who've called us up where they've said, I was going to do something to myself if you couldn't help us. I was really at the bottom. They've had, specialist health visitors because we've had mummies who've had postpartum psychosis because they've not had any sleep, because it's not just babies or children getting up maybe once in the night and being a bit of a pain. It's babies mostly, or children who won't sleep, who come to the edge of their sleep cycles and need help to get back off to sleep. So parents are awake every 40 minutes to an hour for months and months. And knowing when you have a phone call with a family where you're saying to them, I can help you, I will make this better, we can solve this together, and I am here to support you through that. And then seeing the change in them and, the impact it has on the baby's sleep, but their sleep and the whole family is just incredible.
And sleep's one of those things we take for granted, isn't it? And we don't really realize the knock-on effects of poor sleep until we experienced it ourselves, don't we? What sort of things can poor sleep lead to for any of us, really, not just mums?
The short term, kind of, we all know, like children especially, they get very grumpy. They might not be able to concentrate at school because we work with children up to the age of 10. So everyone thinks about helping little ones to sleep. They think about babies. But actually, we work with children up to the age of 10. So, they can make them really grumpy. It can make them have much more tantrums. They then start waking early in the morning. From a health perspective, that can impact it can increase their chances of obesity and type 2 diabetes. For their parents, obviously, it can impact their health in that way as well. Heart disease, increased risk of Alzheimer's and some cancers. It costs the UK economy £16 billion, I think, a year, roughly, lack of sleep on productivity. It can impact relationships. It can impact lots of parents that we work with have tricky relationships because they're awake a lot in the middle of the night. None of us are particularly emotionally robust when we're tired. It can impact relationships with siblings, because one sibling is getting jealous that the other sibling is getting a lot of attention. It can impact relationships with peers. If that child, especially as they're toddlers and preschoolers, they are particularly prone to outbursts. If they won't share, if they're always the grumpy one, it's just got such far-reaching effects. So there was a panorama study in 2017 where the children slept for 1 hour, the school-age children in primary school slept for 1 hour a night extra for a week. And their memory, their attention and focus, all of these sorts of things increased by between 44 and 66%.
Yeah.
And that's literally 1 hour a night for a week. So, huge. And that's just, I could literally talk about this forever.
well, we could. And it can be one of those vicious cycles as well, can't it? Because if we get into, we start, for whatever reason, we start having bad sleep, and then we start to worry about it, don't we? And as you say, we get grumpy and all that sort of thing, but then we probably will end up sleeping worse again because we're worried about it and all that. And yeah, it's a hard cycle to break, isn't it? So what are there any? There's probably lots of people, lots of entrepreneurs that are going to listen to this, probably thinking, actually, I could do with more sleep, not just my children, but I could do more. So, are there any practical tips that we can pass on to everybody that might help?
Yeah, and I think when we don't work with adults for a reason. But when we're kind of talking about sleep, when we're working with older children especially, we look at basic sleep hygiene. So, some of these things sound obvious, but we sometimes find ourselves getting into, habits. So not heavy meals before bed, not lots of sugar or caffeine and those sorts of things. And they can surprise people, if they have a hot chocolate, well, that's got a load of caffeine, caffeine and sugar in it, fruit, all of those sorts of things, making sure that the bedroom environment is nice and calm and tidy, because a lot of people, I don't know, not everybody, but some people, jump their clothes off the side of the bed or in the chair or that sort of thing. So just kind of making it a calm, peaceful environment. And as well, just making sure that your bed is just for sleep and other nocturnal activities, but, don't sit in your bed working, don't, kind of sit in your bed doing all these sorts of things, kind of make sure that your bed, you're going to have a nice association with your bed and that you're not doing your work in your bed, that sort of thing. And for children as well, we often talk to parents and say, we're not actually going to talk to your little one about sleep, because we work with the older children as well to kind of give them some ownership. And they often are quite anxious because they're like, I have to go to sleep. Whereas, like you just said, if we're not sleeping particularly well, we then get worried about it. So we don't talk to them about them going to sleep. We just talk to them about things that they can control, like laying in bed quietly or closing their eyes. They can control that. We take it away from the pressure of sleep.
Fantastic. And lots of things in there. So it can be and I guess with the increasing use of electronic devices and things, then even from quite a young age, probably children have got little screens that they've got in their bedrooms and maybe in their beds.
And what's really interesting, actually, is there's been quite recent research by Professor Gradisar, who is a sleep expert in Australia, to suggest that actually blue light isn't nearly as bad as we all thought it is. Oh. It can. And actually, there's been some research in relation to adolescents, which suggests that if what they're playing, the computer games, that sort of thing, and adults, if that relaxes us, then actually we may well not have a negative impact on our sleep. Watching, I don't know, something about a serial killer, if that relaxes you, might not relax everyone. But actually, it's more about how you respond to the programs and that sort of thing. And so the blue light, it kind of increases sleep latency by a few minutes, so how long it takes you to fall asleep. But it's not this sort of demon that we've all been told. Okay. I don't think there's been research in relation to children about that. So we still suggest at least an hour, ideally 2, of no screens before bed, just in case. And children's programs are very stimulating because they've got very short attention spans, even more and more because of the screens. And so we try and kind of calm children before bed and not have this, huge amount of stimulation.
Brilliant. Okay, so fascinating stuff. In terms of the business, can you give us an idea? So you started in 2016, I think. Did you say?
We did, yeah.
So can you give us an idea of what sort of stage you're at with the business now?
Yeah, so we started in 2016. I didn't go back after my maternity leave with my third child, who is now 6. And we became much busier than I anticipated, much more quickly than I anticipated. Came on board a year and a half later. There's now a team of 4 of us who cover Bristol. To make sure that everyone gets all the sleep that we need. And then in December 2021, we launched our franchise. Took on our first 3 franchisees last year and have just started our round of our next intake of franchisees for this year.
Fantastic. So a core team of around about the 4 of you, and then you've now got franchisees starting to come through. So yeah, impressive. And I certainly would like to explore that franchise side of things in a moment. So that's really, really good. And if you so going back, I know you said you were a solicitor and it was with your third child. I mean, what, apart from the fact you saw this Facebook ad, but what was it about sleep that made you think, you know what, that's where I want to be?
I think I've always been fascinated. Well, I have always been fascinated since I had my eldest. I was always very routine led, and I think, you know, the information wasn't necessarily around as much, even just 11, 12 years ago. And there were, you know, very much 2 camps. You were either the type of mummy who was, or, you know, the type of family who were like, let's do cry it out and just leave the baby to cry completely, and that's what we'll do. Or let's co-sleep and, you know, bed share and all of those sorts of things. And I'm not saying that either of those are wrong, but there wasn't really any middle ground for anyone else who was more of a parent like I was, where I was like, well, I'm not really there and I'm not really there. So where am I? So I'd always really been fascinated by sleep, and we were always a very routine-led family, and that the sort of personality that I am, or, you know, was as well, really helped. But there were many parts of the routine that perhaps didn't work for us, or that perhaps I felt wasn't quite right, and, you know, from developmental stages, those sorts of things. And so when you know, this opportunity presented itself, it just really fitted with my ethos and you know, my obsession is maybe too strong. But you know, I love talking about sleep, and, you know, talking to all my friends when they all had their babies. I was always the one with the baby that slept, and they would always ask me for advice. And so it didn't occur to me at the time, you know, I was a solicitor and that's what I'd always wanted to be. But the more I thought about this, it just really fitted naturally. It seemed obvious, you know, in hindsight, everything does, doesn't it? But it really was such a natural step for me.
Did all 3 of your babies sleep well?
They did. Yeah.
Gosh, because
everyone hates me when I say that as well. Yeah. But I always said, what I couldn't really do my job and say, oh gosh, yeah, my kids don't sleep.
I've got 3 children as well. I remember it was the middle child didn't sleep at the beginning anyway. But the others were actually okay. But
they have different personalities, don't they? I feel like the middle child always has like. Actually, funnily enough, my middle one is my best. If I were to have to pick, I probably shouldn't say this, should I? But my middle one is the best one. You know, he's literally. There's never any faffing, never anything. He just goes in bed, and, you know, yeah. My little one is she's only 6, and so she has just got up to year 1, so she tends to role play. I don't have to do anything, but she'll often go to bed and have a 5-minute role play of her day, just to sort of wind down. Yeah.
No, what a fantastic routine to get into.
It's really sweet. I like listening to her. I kind of record her without her knowing it, because I'm like, oh, this is going to be really cute when you're older. But yeah, she just, you know, has a 5-minute role play, then goes to sleep. Just her little bedtime routine.
Amazing. Really good. So are there many other people and many other businesses doing what you do?
Probably more than you would think. Okay. Not quite, I suppose, looking to scale as much as we have. You know, there are quite a number of sleep consultants in the UK. I'm in touch with a number of them. We all did similar training. So there's probably about 20, maybe of us, 25 that I'm in touch with, and we're all friends. We get on very well. I suppose technically we're in competition, but there are so many mummies and daddies and families with little ones who don't sleep. You know, there's enough for everybody. As far as I'm aware, we are the first franchise of sleep consulting. Okay. Yeah. I think there are 3 or 4 other companies who do training, but obviously then are not providing the intense support that we provide. Funnily enough, my franchisee, I left her yesterday in Colchester, Chelmsford. She said to me, I do not know how you could try and do this without having an expert literally holding your hand and guiding you through the whole thing. because we're essentially, my business partner and I were just saying the other day, we're essentially, when our franchisees work with clients, we're essentially on call every day, because if they have a nap question on a Sunday and they don't know the answer,
oh, you're there as a resource for them.
We're there as a resource for them. So we do have a very intensive first year support package, because we need to, because they need to be able to answer a client's question, and we have such high standards that we wouldn't want them to be able to say, I don't actually know, or to give a client the wrong advice. So we're effectively there all the time.
Great. So in terms of, so it's that level of support, is it, do you think, that separates you from many of the other people that are
absolutely. We have an intensive training program as well. We also have outside experts on our training program, and the one that we are particularly excited about, it's a very recent offering, is the Professor Gradisar that I was talking about earlier. He is one of the experts on our training course, which probably doesn't mean a huge amount to many people, but imagine if you had a baking franchise and Mary Berry taught on it. It's like that. He's one of the world leading experts on sleep, and he's one of our experts on our course. So we have GDPR experts, SEO experts, a lactation consultant, because of course feeding and sleep is so linked. So although our franchisees get a huge amount of training from us and all of our knowledge, anything that we're perhaps not the expert on, and we then get outside experts in.
Yeah, so you're bringing in that extra added credibility from world-leading experts. So how is, for anybody else that's thinking about maybe getting an opinion leader to get involved with their business, have you got any tips as to how you managed to go about persuading the professor to be with you?
I literally sent an email that was my effort email, because I'm a huge, I say this to all of my, I don't use that word in my relation to my franchisees, but I'm always like, if you don't ask, how are you going to get anywhere? Yes, if you don't ask, you're not going to get it. If you do ask, let's just see what happens. So I sent him, he's very, very straight talking. So I drafted a very, very straight talking email. We are a member of his, he has a community online, which is called Wink, which is for sleep experts. So we're a member of that. And so I kind of contacted, we've been in contact, and then I just was like, do you know what? What's the worst that can happen? I have also done things in the past, though. For example, we've sent branded cupcakes to heads of companies, after they've not replied to us. And then we've had a response. So, nice. Being creative and thinking outside of the box. If you don't get a response, never, I don't really ever take no for an answer. That's just it's just it's not a no. It's just okay, well, let's work around this. How can we make it work? Yeah. It's not, just don't give up. There's another way. There'll be a way.
Yeah. Great. Very good. So you started in 2016. So how did you, just take us back then, maybe to some of the early stages and some of the stepping stones then, and along the way, maybe some of the lessons you learned and whatever. So take us back to that beginning. How did you actually get started after the training course, for example?
After I'd done it, pretty much straight away, everyone else would sort of go out and have their dinner, and I'd be upstairs designing my logo, because that's, I was like, well, if I'm going to make a go of this, let's do it. So I was pregnant at the time, so I was a solicitor and did this for sort of 6 months. And then after taking 6 months off completely maternity leave, I thought, well, I'm going to have to decide if I want to 100% do this, because giving up a career where you train for 6 years and spend quite a lot of money on it, and you've done it for 12 years, and I was, some people were very supportive. I literally had a couple of people laugh in my face when I told them what I was going to do. So I thought I better make sure that I know what I'm going to do, and be happy about it. So for 4 or 5 months, I just was a sleep consultant, just to make sure that the demand was out there and that it was something that I absolutely loved. And then, handed in my notice, didn't go back after mat leave. And then, as I said, became busier than I anticipated, much quicker than I anticipated. Probably because I was just making sure I was everywhere. I'm like, well, I'm going to make a go of this. I'm going to make a go of it. So then, the marketing worked. Everyone started to need sleep help. But I also, of course, had 3 small children. Only one of them was at school. One was a toddler, one was a baby. So it became quite apparent that I perhaps might need a little helping hand. Yeah. And so an ex-client who became a friend said, oh, I have a friend who would like to be a sleep consultant. Would you mind chatting to her? And I said, of course not. So Faye and I spoke on the phone, and we clicked like I've never really clicked with anyone before. We met up for coffee. She had a few-month-old little one at the time, and then I said to her, are you thinking about maybe, would you like to work for someone? And she said, oh, well, yes, I would. I'd love that. But I don't really know anyone who's looking. And I was like, oh, hi, I don't know anything. I don't have any information for you, but let's see if we can make this work. And we did. And we have taken on other people. Of course, we've got Becky and Jagruti, who's just having a little break, but I kind of still see her as part of the team. And then we've got our assistant, Kelly. And I think kind of, we recognized that we wanted to scale, we wanted to grow, but, every area of the country is so different. Every culture in different areas is so different. And we recognized that, we would need experts in each of those areas. And, and so a friend who was, I think, a director of the BFA, or, was heavily involved in the BFA, had said, you really should franchise. And I still, thanks, that's nice. Carry on with our day. And about a year before we even start thinking about it seriously, and then when we decided to do it, we went ahead and did it and got involved with Ashton's, had advice from them, Ashton's Legal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and you said the BFA, and there might be some people listening that aren't quite sure. So that's the British Franchise Association.
It is, yes.
Yep. Okay. And so what gave you the confidence that franchising was the right route for you? Because you could have, I don't know, maybe you could have thought about licensing. You could have thought about growing organically, as you say. You mentioned you need the experts in the areas, but what made you think franchising was the right way forward?
I think we're a very, very evidence-based company. We always like to do things properly. My history being a solicitor, Faye was a mental health social worker. And so, we loosely considered those ideas, but for us, we needed to do it properly. We needed to have advice and support from people who had done it before, who were going to tell us the right thing, and also make sure that the people who were, going to have a franchise or a license or whatever it was, we didn't just want to train people and say, well, there's your training, off you go and set up your own firm and those sorts of things or anything like that. We needed to be able to provide the sort of support that we knew people would need. And so for us, franchising seemed the logical step.
Okay. And there's a lot involved in franchising, so I'd like to unpack that a little bit for anybody that might be listening and interested in exploring the franchising route. So part of that, of course, is making sure that you've got a business model and support, if you like, that the franchisee can buy into, and there's something there of value to them. So did you have to change anything about the way you were doing business at the time to develop that into a model that could be franchised?
I think probably the main thing, because at the time we got a huge amount of work through word of mouth, which, is brilliant and fantastic for the company. But when we're kind of looking to have franchisees in different areas of the country, we needed to make sure that we were perhaps having a larger percentage of people come from the website and social media and that sort of thing. So that was probably the biggest change that we undertook sort of during that 12-month period. Obviously we had to get a trademark and that sort of thing. But, I would say that was probably the biggest change in how we did things, because previously we were, always, very reliant on word of mouth, which is great. Lots of, exhausted mummies and daddies talk to exhausted mummies, or no longer should I say exhausted mummies and daddies, talk to exhausted mummies and daddies and carers and what have you. But that was the biggest change for us, that we needed to make sure that, yes, franchisees, of course, longer term will get word of mouth referrals, but initially we needed to make sure that they were able to, get business from the very beginning from elsewhere.
Okay, so from the social media marketing side, so what sort of things work for you then in terms of attracting or finding exhausted mothers and fathers?
We still we probably get 50% of our work from word of mouth. But the franchisees, within a few months have started to find that they also get word of mouth referrals now. We also do a lot of work in baby groups and, go to different events. And then we've invested in our SEO, and we've also been working on our social media. We've just finished a social media replan, whatever they call it, to make sure that what we're doing is the right thing. So that's kind of what we're finding at the moment, is kind of all those three things together.
And for a new franchisee coming into a new area, then you can target into that area and help generate leads for them that way. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why one of the reasons I went to Colchester to support Lucy was to support her in her first events, to make sure that she had someone there, even just to show her how to set it up, and to, there were lots actually of parents who were very interested. So just being able to have two people to manage, and then to talk through how she would manage that by herself. And it was she did a first seminar. Again, just making sure that what she was saying was right, setting up, how to market, getting people signed up to the newsletter, booking calls with people who wanted booking calls. It sounds pretty obvious, but actually ascertaining who is a likely client and who is just maybe having a bit of trouble with an app or isn't really interested at all, that's kind of a big thing.
Great. So a lot of work in setting up the franchise. So you did it with Ashton's. There's all the legal side, of course. I mean, I guess as a solicitor, you've got some insights into the more than most into the legal aspects of franchising.
I could probably understand it a little bit more. We don't like to use one word if we can use 20. So one of the reasons that we went with Ashton's is because they have then Ashton's Legal as part of it, which then was more of a joined up way of doing things. But I would say, to anyone who is thinking about franchising and franchising their business, the course on the British Franchise Association website, they have a free course that talks about all the things that you need to think about. It's probably quite a good first step to make sure that you are thinking all the things that you need to be aware of, because like you said, it is probably a bigger undertaking than we anticipated, the initial side of things.
Especially if you're going to do it properly. And you mentioned the British Franchise Association and the accreditation that they do, so that then potential franchisees have that confidence to know that you've done it properly.
Exactly. I can't. The slightest of corner cutting makes me very anxious. I'm very much like I'm dotting every I, I'm crossing every T, and everything has to be very neat and just. So we're like I said, we're very evidence based, but because of our backgrounds, we want everything to be just as it should be.
So did anything surprise you about going through that franchise development process?
The amount of work.
Yeah. Right.
I think we both knew it was going to be a long time. It was going to be 12 months we should put aside and what have you. But I do remember thinking at the outset, what on earth are we going to be doing for 12 months to prepare this? And then as we went through the process with these, couple of 80-page documents and 20-page legal document, I think we probably spent 10 hours just with the solicitor. I then realised, actually, yes, this is what we are spending all the time doing. And of course, when you're relatively small and you start out, you need to do everything yourself, all your website, redoing the website to concentrate more on the franchise brochure. I think just everything, you need to do everything really, unless you're going to have heavy investment and get people to come and do that for you, which is great. But actually what's really nice is that because we've done a lot of the work ourselves, we're very much in control of it. Again, not control freaks, but we do like things to be a certain way. And so, we were very clear that we wanted to be heavily involved in everything so that it could be how we felt it should be.
And of course, it's not a cheap process, is it? You mentioned investment. It's quite an expensive process to go through. So were you fully aware of all the costs before you started? How did you budget?
Yeah, I think we were pretty much aware. Obviously, there's always surprises, isn't there, or things that don't work quite as they should to begin with. So we've had a couple of learning curves that have cost us, but we're quite fortunate in the way that we've been able to finance it ourselves, which has been very lucky. We don't have the added pressure of having to either pay back a bank or meet targets for investors. So we've been lucky in that way. But it wouldn't be something to go into without being fully aware of the costs, because you also, it's sort of like a building, like building a house in a way. You need a pot of money as well for when things go wrong.
Yeah. And also, it's easy to see the fact that we need to do the legals, we need to do the manuals and all of those things. And you can budget for that, but that only gets you to the point where you can get to the, you can start the party. You're at your seat at the table, isn't it? Then you've got to think about, okay, how do we actually find our franchisees?
Yeah. Absolutely. And we were very lucky to begin with. You know, our initial franchisees, Gemma, won't mind me saying, she was a client of mine. So we found her organically.
Right.
And we had already contacted us and said, I really want to be a sleep consultant. Is there any way that I can do it with you? And she was in the process of moving to Devon. So we had a huge amount of interest actually just from our previous clients. Obviously, a lot of them were in Bristol, which was a shame. But
would you like to move? Yeah.
Were you thinking about? You said, okay. So we have said to a few people, if you think about moving, come back. But yeah, so a lot of we did have a lot of initial interest from people that had already worked with us. Jagruti, who worked for us, was a previous client of Faye's, and so I think the difficulty that we have is that what we recognise is that the people who may want a Little Dreams franchise don't know that they want a franchise at this stage. They're just sat at their desk or in their ward if they're a nurse or doctor, or what have you, or sat in their classroom if they're a teacher, thinking, I don't love this anymore and I'm not quite sure what to do. And they are the people that we are looking to attract. Absolutely, people can be looking for a franchise as well, but we recognise that not everybody who would be a great fit for a Little Dreams franchise may not really know huge amounts about franchising at this stage.
Okay. And are your franchisees, are they operating it as a full-time business? Are they operating it alongside other things, or how? Yeah,
so ours is pretty much a full-time franchise. The biggest draw, I would say, probably for people is that it's completely flexible. We don't have class timetables, we don't have opening hours, we don't have a shop. It is completely flexible. So whilst you would be expected to work pretty much full-time, at least 4 days a week, you can do it around nursery. You could do it in school hours and then think, well, actually, when the children have gone to bed, I'll work on an evening. But also because of by virtue of it being really a 7-day-a-week job, because you need to check your sleep logs and check your emails in case families have a time-critical question, you could do a couple of hours each day of the weekend. So it's absolutely not a Monday to Friday 9 till 5. That not any franchise is that, but you know what I mean, kind of, we're not stuck to class timetables. We completely set our own hours. You could see clients just on an evening if you wanted to, or just on a weekend, or during the day as well. So we are looking for pretty much full-time, but completely flexible.
And what's the sort of investment required to buy into the franchise?
So we've got two levels, I guess. They both get exactly the same thing, but we recognise that one of the barriers that people were facing was the initial investment. So we have an initial investment of £14,000 with a 10% MSF, but then we also have a lower investment with a slightly higher MSF as well, so that people can, it's not a barrier.
All right. So MSF, you and I are familiar with that, maybe.
Yeah. So there's a percentage of income that franchisees pay to the franchisor, and we all refer to that as MSF. It's relatively low. I think we did a focus group not too long ago, and everyone was quite surprised actually with how low the MSF was. I think they were expecting it to be 40-50%. And then, like I said, we have then the £4,000 license fee on top. What we wanted to do is make it as easy, as accessible to people as possible.
Yeah, good. And then do you have a target kind of payback period that you would expect somebody to get to break even and pay back for?
Yeah, it depends on what wage they expect or that they want, but just in relation to your initial investment, you should be able to see that back within the first year.
Great, which
the most, I would say. Yeah,
which compared with the thought of starting up your own business from scratch, is a pretty decent return.
Yeah, and I think as well, if you start your business from scratch, you may recognise that there are costs, but you probably aren't thinking about the costs it's going to, of building your website, or of finding the photos for the website, or of, getting your email address set up, and what happens if something goes wrong with that, and all of the costs that you probably actually don't think about when you're starting a business. Yeah. That obviously we can provide for everybody.
Yeah, excellent. So, initial franchisees came largely from clients, which is fantastic. So now, as you move on, how are you finding prospective franchisees?
So we're just trying to be everywhere. We are we're doing some SEO work as well in relation to the franchise side of things on the website. We've really stepped up our social media game. As I was saying, we've got a meeting next week to talk about that, because a lot of our potential franchisees are going to be on Instagram, on Facebook, just sort of scrolling for ideas. We are on LinkedIn and TikTok and YouTube as well. We're doing a franchise show actually in Olympia later on this year. Just to see how that goes. And then we also work quite closely with Children's Franchise Enterprise. They're doing some shows, so we're advertising with them and going to a couple of their shows. But, also newsletters and podcasts like this. So we're just trying to be, everywhere.
So what's your, what's your ambition? What is, if we're having this conversation in 5 years' time, for example, where do you hope to be?
So we'd like to obviously have many more franchisees. We also have a EU trademark, which that's kind of in a 5 years, I would anticipate. I would like to think that we were either starting to, we'll be in the process, or starting to be in Europe as well, with Little Dreams, which is quite exciting.
Yeah, very good. And what sort of things do you do as you now expand your network of franchisees? How are you managing because presumably some will perform really well and get everything will be brilliant. Others may struggle a little bit. What do you do to help to get everybody learning from each other and doing as well as they can?
What we want to have is, I don't know if this is a particularly business word, but a very lovely culture in our franchise so that everyone can learn from everyone else. But like I was saying, we have that really intensive first year support. So we have monthly one-to-ones. So Faye and I are currently franchise managers, because we're relatively small, so probably for the next year we will be as well. Faye does a lot of the training and help in relation to sleep, and then I do a lot more of the marketing side of things and the setup of the business and those sorts of things. So you have access to both of us and our expertise in those ways. So we have a meeting every month with the franchisee to talk about. We'll talk about KPIs, we'll talk about difficulties that they're having, all of those sorts of things. We then have a round table every month with the franchisees, and moving forward, that will be kind of split into years or kind of joint year groups, so that a 5-year side isn't, talking to that. We'll have round tables so that everyone brings something they want to discuss, and they get, at the moment it's 10 to 15 minutes, but as we grow we might have to reconsider that, where everyone then gives their ideas, and then we also have every week for the first 6 months, and then finally for the second or 3 months extra training. So we'll kind of things that aren't necessarily covered in the initial training, because that is quite intense, or we might have refresher training. So for example, the lactation consultant, the GDPR experts, they're all part of that kind of ongoing support. But as I said, in reality, we are at the end of an email throughout the whole first year for franchisees, because a lot of this job is time critical. Time critical, there's a nap. But because of the level of service that we give to clients, it's really important. So, that kind of massive first year support, as well as going with them to their first events, that's how they're going to really learn and grow, and that's the support that they're going to get.
Great. So what are some of the things you're most proud of, the things you've got right since you started the business, you think?
I think we're really bad at this. We both kind of say we need to stand back more often and look at it. I think the fact that we launched a franchise and we have 3 franchisees, it sounds a bit bizarre, but our testimonials, I'm so proud of the whole team and all the, we have 50 5-star reviews. We only have, and that includes the franchisees, all of us only have 5-star reviews.
Right.
Because of the level of service we get, because of the outcomes that we managed to get for families, but also things that we were finalists in the Great British Entrepreneur Awards, as and that was huge for us as well. That was a real moment of, oh gosh, actually we've created something that's quite good. So I'd say probably those things.
Yeah, and you're award winning as well, aren't you?
We are, yes, actually, we are. We for 2 years running for the franchise, we've won the Corporate Livewire Awards for Wellness Brand of the Year, and for 4 years running, actually, for Little Dreams Consulting, the original company, we've won Wellbeing Consultants of the Year, which is quite exciting.
Yeah, very good, very good. So, what sort of things would you say maybe you didn't get quite right, or that given your time again, you might do differently that others can learn from, perhaps?
I think we probably need to recognise that we know our business most, and it's really important to take on board advice, but there's so much differing advice depending on who you talk to. And also that if someone is recommended to you, you need to double check them out. Just because someone's been recommended, they may not be the right person for your brand, is probably what I will say. That if someone's been recommended, just double check that they are the right fit for you and they're going to do what you need them to do.
And how do you assess that?
Well, just go and look at their Google reviews, just go and have a look on their website, just, talk to others. So I think we probably were just, if someone's given us some advice, brilliant, we'll take that. And then we'll move forward with that. And someone's given us this advice, we'll take that, rather than kind of standing back and being a little bit more, yes, we need the advice and we need to take it on board, but actually we know our company best and we need to be taking everything absolutely, but with a little pinch of salt and thinking, actually, I'm not sure that this is the right thing for us.
Yeah, good. So what are some of the big challenges that you see in getting to that five-year vision that we spoke about? What might get in the way?
The government. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, sorry. But the current economic situation that the country is facing, I think that hasn't helped. Towards the end of the last year, that became apparent. We had two franchisees. Oh no, they're not franchisees. Two people who were very, very, very keen, and we'd gone quite far down the process, and then the debacle started, and we didn't. They decided that it wasn't the right time to make the jump, and that's probably for us going to be the trickiest thing, which is why we've then thought about rejigging a little bit our pricing structure to make it as affordable as possible. But we're very clear that we don't want to dull down the offering that we're giving. We have had a conversation about, should we take that out? Should we take that out? Should we maybe reduce that? But for us, that's not our brand, and we're being very true to it. Yes,
and it's not exactly. You can't exactly give half of the correct advice to your parents, can you?
And I think sleep is such a complex topic. Most people don't recognise it. They think you lay down, you fall asleep. Whereas little ones, if you get a nap wrong, or if this doesn't quite go right, it's liable to mess up the next 24 to 48 hours. Which to some people listening, they might be like, it doesn't really matter. But if you haven't slept for 6, 12, 24 longer months, then that's a huge thing. So you can't, you can't really just do a bit and think you're an expert. It really is quite complex.
Yeah. And you mentioned the culture and the sort of family feel. How do you go about reinforcing that within the business?
What we try and do, like I said, is kind of just through the way that we act, firstly, and secondly, allowing people and encouraging people to meet up and be in touch as much as we possibly can. So obviously, formally, we do that through the round tables. We've got a conference going on. But also what we found, which is really lovely, is that the franchisees are often in touch with each other as well. We have a forum on we had a system that was built for us, and we have a forum on there that they can access. But actually what I find is really lovely is that they'll just often be in touch themselves. One of our franchisees recently went on and had a baby. And so, she and Gemma, our Bath and Swindon franchisee, went online and did a live together, and they'll record reels together, and, we'll just sort of be in touch quite often, and actually also in touch with the girls that work in Bristol. So, Bristol, though it's not a franchise, we kind of want to include everyone there as well. So, like I said, the way that we act, but also encouraging everyone to be in touch and share what they have found. And we've managed, I think, to do that thus far.
And it sounds, I meant to ask before, actually, it sounds like it's a territory-based, geography-based territories. How have you carved up the country into different territories?
we got an expert on board. So we had a third, an expert company to, as far as we could, emulate Bristol. So Bristol is our benchmark. And so we've made sure, based upon, specific demographics and things that are important in relation to our clients, they've gone about and mapped the territories based upon that. So it's based upon, it's not just, well, there's London, there's Swindon, there's Aberdeen. We wanted to make sure that our franchisees could be successful. So like I said, Bristol is the benchmark, and then they have at least what Bristol has had, but usually more potential clients per year. So that's
excellent. Good. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I think some really, really interesting insights there for anybody developing any kind of business, but certainly as well if they're looking at maybe they think about the franchise route. So really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your insights. And you're up for a couple of final questions, just sort of almost a bit of a quick fire thing.
Okay.
As you wrap up. So if you were to go back to your younger self, what would your advice be to you as you were younger, Jenna?
Oh, not to worry as much.
Okay.
I think probably, being a qualified solicitor, your early 20s, and then you need to progress, you need to do this and what have you. I think I would probably just tell myself not to worry quite as much. It's all very well now because I know it's all worked out. But I would like my younger self to know that it's going to work out. So don't worry quite as much, travel more. I did travel for a year, but, travel more and don't worry as much.
Great. What resources have you found particularly useful? I don't know, books, podcasts, things like that.
Oh gosh, quite a few. So I have found Stephen Bartlett podcast quite helpful.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
There's another one, gosh, that I can't remember the name of, and it'll come back to me later. But the BFA, I think the BFA, who are able to then put you in touch with people who are supportive. That's been really helpful. So not necessarily people that everybody can access or books that everyone can read, but just the willingness, I think, of franchisors who are much further down their journey than we are, being willing to take the time and talk to us. EWIF has been great, encouraging women into franchising.
Okay.
That's been really great as well, and meeting people there. But probably, that's not particularly helpful, I appreciate, but the kind of having access to people who have been very, very willing and supportive, and just saying anything you need, anything you've got a question about, come and ask us and we'll help you out. Yes, the importance of peers that have experienced some of the things that you might be going through. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the Stephen Bartlett one is that the secret diary of the CEO? I think that's what it is, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. Any apps or software tools that have been particularly useful to you that help you in the business? Faye, you need to talk to you about that, as I said. We have created our own CRM system, which has been brilliant with, I think that it's Franchise 360. And creating that has been really, really helpful. And, sort of the basic stuff on Google Sheets, that sort of thing. But it is not, that is not my forte. I know that's something I need to work on. I'm probably not the best person to ask. So you're not one with lots of apps on your home screen of your phone. That's right. That's disappointing. not at all. Brilliant. And I think you've already mentioned from a marketing point of view, then sounds like obviously referrals are a key aspect to you, and the social media as key tactics. Any others that are really good for you? Word of mouth, is really important. But I think as well, just kind of like what we've been trying to do, and I've created a couple of articles for relevant magazines in relation to people thinking about changing career. And I actually, funnily enough, went back to Andrea, the coach that I worked with, and said to her, "Can you collaborate on this for me?" And so she gave me her top tips, which, if anyone is interested in reading it, then I'm more than happy to send it out. They can pop me an email. For anyone who's listening who thinks it might be helpful, and getting her top tips. So I've done quite a few, for magazines. Well, that's a good lead into if people would like to get hold of you, Jenna, find out more about whether they're a suffering parent, not sleeping, their child's not sleeping, or whether they're interested in a franchise. What's the best way for them to get hold of you, Jenna? The website has huge amounts of information on to begin with. So that's littledreamsconsulting.com. We've got huge amounts of resources, blogs, all sorts on there. But then also they can download the prospectus from the franchise side of the website. Or they could pop me an email, which is jenna@littledreamsconsulting.com. But like I said, we're pretty much everywhere. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok, just as Little Dreams Consulting. So they can search us up there.
Super. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Thank you again for sharing all of your insights. I certainly wish you all the best with your growing franchise and look forward to hearing how things go, and hopefully before 5 years, but it'll be great to talk to you again. So thank you very much for being my guest on ScaleUp Radio today.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.